Welcome, and thanks for coming.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to be here tonight and talk with you. And I really mean that. Thank you. You could have easily just chosen a couple of candidates to interview and have already been done with this process. But instead, you chose to spend a lot of time with each of us. And I appreciate that personally, but I think it shows your dedication to this district. You're spending countless hours to ensure that you're making the right decision for your next superintendent of schools for Natchitoches Parish. And I appreciate that. You're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. Thanks. You're welcome. My name is Brandy, and I've been in the educational field for nearly 20 years. I've been a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and now I'm the director for 19 schools in Natchitoches Parish. During my time in education, I've received awards like Teacher of the Year for my school, for my district, and for multi-parish areas. In education, I have tons of professional learning under my belt. I stay on the cutting edge of educational practices. As you've probably done, I've looked at the resumes of all the other applicants, and wow, I'm impressed with each of them. But do you know what jumps out at me the most? That we all want the exact same thing, to positively impact the lives of students. It's what we've been doing our whole career, and it's what we hope to continue to do here in Natchitoches Parish. All of the candidates got into education for one reason, to impact young people. We've all enjoyed it, we still enjoy it, so there's no real difference between us in that regard. Do you know what the main difference is going to be between all of these highly qualified candidates? It's going to be their leadership and management styles. I think that's what you're going to need to figure out, which of our personalities and leadership and management styles best suit your district. Some management styles micromanage everything they do. Some are very hands-off, some are very visible, and some you never see. All of which can be effective depending on the leader in the organization. That being said, I think it's important for you to know about my leadership and management style and to find out if I would be a good fit for you. In nearly 20 years in education, I've had a lot of success. In my current position, I've had a significant amount of success with the 19 schools that I oversee. Last year alone, for those 19 schools, we saw a net impact of positive 25.9 points in SPS, with 4 out of my 5 middle schools, and moving up an entire letter grade in a single year. 0 schools being left in failing status, and 7 being awarded with top gains from the Louisiana Department of Education. My success with this came by dividing my principals into 3 categories. My Category 1 principals are my principals that are doing a fantastic job. They love their job, they have high test scores, they have a great faculty, and their students are soaring. You know what I did with those principals? I left them alone to be the great leaders that they are, but I used them as mentors and experts for our other principals. Category 2 and 3 principals were similar, but they had one main difference. They both struggled with test scores, had staffing issues, disciplinary problems, and were generally just kind of lost in the principal role. But the key difference in a Category 2 principal was a sincere desire to change and a deep enjoyment for their work. I focused much of my effort on my Category 2 principals. They were the ones that wanted to see their school, their community, their teachers, and their students have success. They were willing to take suggestions and try new things. With this category principal, we saw significant growth under my leadership. One school in particular was an F school just 3 years ago. With the right principal and under my leadership and support, that school moved from an F to a D and became a C this school year. The third category of principal, which is a very small percentage, mind you, were ones that were completely overwhelmed, often ineffective, and didn't improve. After providing intensive support, resources, and coaching, in some instances, we had to make tough decisions. I don't know if you have any Category 3 principals, and I hope you don't, but if you do, I want you to know that I'm willing to make some tough decisions. My management style is very hands-on, but not in a micromanaging way. I believe that I'm very good at identifying what needs to be done, organizing a plan, and then delegating those duties to qualified people who can execute the plan. As your next superintendent, I plan to be in schools nearly every single day. Leading your district, I can ensure that we're going to impact our students by having an effective teacher in every classroom. We're going to impact our teachers by supporting, growing, and developing their craft while remembering that they are professionals and treating them as professionals. We're going to impact our leaders by providing a positive and trusting culture that supports continuous growth. We're going to impact our parents by providing them with the necessary tools to support their children at home. And finally, we're going to impact our community by elevating the amazing partnerships that you already have established to improve outcomes for students. As a leader, I want you to know that I'm also a unifier. Now, don't let this be confused with a yes person, because I'm not. But we're in a political climate today that's very divisive, no matter your political affiliation. It's ugly, and the way people that with opposing views are treated is sometimes unacceptable. I know it doesn't have to be like that, and as a school board, we won't operate like that. I think we should be able to freely voice our opinions, respectfully disagree if necessary, and work together to come up with a good decision for everyone. As a leader, I've done a good job of listening to each side and consistently finding common ground where each side feels respected and valued. You know, I saw a statistic recently that says 65% of children entering our schools today will end up working in jobs that don't even exist yet. 65%. Can you believe that? Now, as a mother, I'm a mother to Caroline, who's 8, Jack, who's 6, and Carson, who is 4. And it's exciting to think about preparing your child for the future, but it's also terrifying when you think about you don't even know what you're setting them up for. As an educator, that's one of my main focuses, to prepare kids for the unknown future. Although we don't know what jobs will exist, we do know that technology and collaboration will play a major role. I've always kept up with technology, the major changes that have come and the ones that are still coming. And I actually was awarded with the LeQ Region 6 Technology Teacher of the Year Award. As a leader, I'm also very focused on data. The right data can tell us numerous things about an organization, such as giving us areas that we need to improve, as well as areas that need to be emulated and celebrated. I'll give you an example of some data I've gathered for Natchitoches Parish, along with some goals for 2024. I truly believe that by 2024, we could be a solid B district and on a trajectory to be an A district in Louisiana. I know that we can move the 5 D and F schools out of failing status and into a higher status. I believe that we need to focus on increasing the percent mastery in our 3rd through 8th grade assessments. And we can do this by providing our teachers with the necessary curriculum, instruction, and professional development to make sure our students are reaching the mastery of grade level standards. We also need to take a hard look at our subgroup of students. These are our populations of students that are underperforming our total population. It's time for us to take a look at why we're getting these results, as well as make a plan to ensure that these students see growth and success as well. Of course, ACT, that's the end game for a lot of our high schoolers. By getting a solid ACT score, that opens up doors and possibilities that they would not usually have. I believe by 2024, we could have an ACT composite of a 20 with our eye on a 21, because we know a 21 is even better. And then finally, our goal as educators is to ensure that each one of our students walks out with a diploma. That is our job, and we need to make sure that our graduation rate is at least 95%, because we know whether they're going straight to the workforce, or they're going to Northwestern, or they're going to a technical college, every student needs a diploma in order to be successful in the next area of their life. I truly believe that smart and correct decisions can be made from the right data. The data tells us a story, but it's what we do with that data that makes an impact on students. I'm excited about the future of Natchitoches and building on the solid foundation that y'all have here, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any follow-up on her opening remarks? Thank you for maintaining that time.
You're welcome.
Again, you have the questions in front of you, should you need to glance at them as we ask. Mr. Gordon?
Yes, my question, what is your philosophy on discipline and why?
So my philosophy on discipline is that we really need to get to the root cause of the discipline and really work with students and all of our community members to come together to identify what can we do to ensure that discipline does not continue. So it has to be a restorative practice. We can't just suspend and expel when kids act up. We need to figure out what's causing the problem and then identify solutions to be able to resolve those problems.
Where have you, and what process do you put in place to do that?
So we have a couple of different things that we do in our schools, depending on if it's elementary, middle, or high school. But even in our lowest elementary schools, we found that sometimes our students are overstimulated and just can't handle it. So we've created some calming rooms in some of those places where they can just go, calm down for a few minutes, then with the goal of getting back on campus. Of course, you know, for middle school and high school, it's tricky, but if you use in-school suspension effectively, then I think that could be a great solution because they're not missing instruction at that point. They're staying on your campus. But then again, you know, you have to make sure that they have a contract in place or a behavior plan in place so that when they re-enter, they know they're not going to, the same behavior is not going to be accepted.
I have a quick question. Sure. What are your thoughts on a student being suspended for excessive tardiness?
My personal belief on that is that it kind of defeats the purpose because we want them at school, so suspending them out of school is not the best solution for that. Again, we need to figure out why the student's tardy. Is it a home issue where the parents just can't get them up or get them dressed or get them ready for school? And then sometimes what I found with tardies, and you know, it did not make me popular as a principal, but I would actually have some before school detention for where the parents would actually have to come with the students because it's really the parents' reason why they were late. But no, I do not believe in suspending for tardiness. We want our kids there as much as possible.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Do you think dealing with the considered population size and that, which is majority, minority, Black students, that requiring diversity, cultural diversity training would help new teachers?
Absolutely. I think that just in general, our teachers need training on culturally responsive teaching and really how to teach and get to those students as well. So yes, I definitely think it's professional development, it's learning, and our kids have just changed over time. So it's really providing our teachers with the support that, okay, this is how we handle discipline now. I know it's not the same as it was when I was in school or when you were in school, but our kids have evolved and changed. So how do we make the best impact for those kids? And I think that's training our teachers. And I think there is a line that you have to draw in the sand because at the end of the day, our teachers are not there to get abused by kids. And so there are some instances where you have to remove explosive students because it's just unsafe for the teacher. And that's when you really need to get your health community involved and figure out the best avenue for that child to get the support that they need. You're welcome.
Ms. Plum?
What are your thoughts on having visual, performing arts, and music in our schools? And how would you allocate or find funding for these programs?
I think it's an essential piece that we're missing in many of our schools. I think that the Louisiana Department of Education has actually done a great job of adding that into our school performance score now with interest and opportunities that we're providing to our students. The federal government under Title IV that we get allocations from actually earmark money for interest and opportunities. So I think that's a great use of our funding to make sure that we have as many opportunities for our students. I think it takes creative scheduling as far as can we have an art teacher at every school? Probably not, but can we look at some itinerant positions where they may service a couple of schools and be able to go once or twice a week to each of those schools? We can absolutely do that. And I think working with, some high schools tend to have some more interest and opportunities, but how can we use those people as well to get as many opportunities to our students as possible. And I truly believe that, you know, when students want to come to school, when they're using all parts of their brain, the education just comes with it.
Thank you.
This is on a different part. What experience do you have in budgets? And in a deficit year, what would be your analysis to rectify the situation?
Okay, so I have experience in budgets as far as our general fund and our title funds, as far as my 19 schools that I oversee. Their Title I budgets, of course, I review, and then it's approved by our federal programs director. And then our general fund, when we're looking at things like math adoption, you know, we take that money out of there. In a deficit year, you really need to work closely with your finance officer to see where we're spending our money and what cuts need to be made. Of course, we don't want to make cuts that impact the classroom, so we try to get those as far away from the actual classroom because we know that's what makes the most impact on student achievement. But it really would take a group effort of identifying how efficiently and how effectively we're using all of our funds. And hopefully we wouldn't have to go into a reduction force, but sometimes, depending on the deficit, it is necessary.
Well, that follow-up question is that what process would you recommend to correct it? Would you just answer that?
That's right. Sometimes you have to do that.
Yes.
Good evening. How will you advise the board of all situations and issues that pertain to the schools, students, and faculty in a timely manner?
So I think this is where you have to meet with each board member and decide what is the best avenue of communication for each of them. Now, I will say in emergency situations, hopefully you have some sort of text or email mechanism where you use where we have to get word out immediately. But if it's something that's going on with one of your schools that you need to be made aware of, maybe you're a person that likes a phone call as opposed to a text, maybe you're very busy and you're like, if you will just text me and let me know what's going on, I would prefer that. But I think it's an individual board by board member, except of course in instances where we have to get immediate word out to y'all, and then hopefully we're using a call system, text system, something of that nature to be able to get that information out to you. And of course, if I was your superintendent, I would like to start a weekly, just here's what's going on in our schools this week. Feel free to be a part of it. Reach out to me with questions. It's just kind of a weekly update so you always know what's going on. But for emergency situations, definitely we need to have a system in place to make sure that we get the word out to y'all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lawrence, based on your knowledge, what do you perceive are the top 3 issues in our parish, and what is your plan to address them?
So in digging through your district's data, just based on my limited knowledge, but what I see is that you have an opportunity to really grow your teachers to grow students. I think your percent mastery that you saw up there, your ACT score, your assessment data is showing that your kids are doing okay, kind of like the old basic level, but we're not teaching to mastery of standards. And I think there's a couple of things we need to do there is, number one, make sure that our teachers are equipped with quality Tier 1 curriculum to be able to reach those standards. We need to make sure that teachers have intensive professional development to grow in their craft. We need to make sure that our leaders know what good instructional practices look like and are able to support that in their building. So I definitely think we need to work on growing the leadership. I did notice that you kind of have a gap of, you have really high performing schools and you have really low performing schools. And again, I think an intense support on those lower performing schools, working with the leadership there first and foremost, because that's where it starts, but trickling down to the teachers. And then you may need to look at the quality of teachers at each campus and incentivizing maybe some highly qualified teachers to come work in some lower performing schools. We actually did that in Rapides through a grant with NIET. The TAP payout process was really an incentive for some of our teachers to go to our lower performing schools, and we actually saw some significant growth there. So I think really a focus on instruction seems to be what is glaring to me. But again, that's my instructional background, that looking at your data, I see.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, making some incentives, giving some teachers an opportunity to go where lower schools were at, was working.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. And we actually made it where that was kind of our pipeline to leadership. Like if you knew you wanted to be an assistant principal or a master teacher one day, we really encourage our people to work in our lower performing schools because we know they can gain a lot of experience there. And so we kind of built something where, if you do this, then you can be looked at for leadership in our district. And it really has helped transform. And again, it depends on the leader of the school. That's hugely important. But if it's important to the principal, it's important to the district to get qualified, very effective teachers to our lowest performing schools, then we can make that happen. And our best teachers should be serving our most underserved.
Thank you
kids.
so very much.
Ms. Phelps?
Yes, Ms. Lawrence. What steps would you take to evaluate the current leadership positions within the central office? And please provide a time when you had to repurpose an employee to move to a more productive position.
See, that's great. So Rapides Parish just hired a new superintendent 7 months ago, and we are in the process of doing that right now with the reorganization. But I think for the first 90 to 100 days, you really need to come into the district and you need to listen and you need to learn. You need to watch what people are doing. Of course, you need to go back and look at previous evaluations, but I don't know if your district's like mine, but most of the evaluations were pretty much all the same and effective. But, it's taking a hard look at what are the day-to-day operations that this person is doing, and are we using whatever level it is? If it's an executive level position, that's a pretty big salary, so they should be carrying a pretty big load and having an impact on our students. So I think if you come at it with the mindset of really looking at, is this person being maximized, or this position, because we think about a position, not a person, but is this position being maximized for what it needs to be, then you can make some changes. And of course, Act 1, you have a superintendent, you have the ability to reclassify positions as needed, of course with board approval on that, but I think, you just have to look at how you're efficiently and effectively utilizing all positions. But you don't come in day one and say, get rid of it all, let's start over.
Any follow-up, board member? Mr. McFly?
What experience have you had with the transportation program, and how do you manage a contract system?
So of course, our transportation program is not contracted, but I've had extensive experience with bus routes and trying to figure that out. We reconfigured our inner city schools a couple of years ago where we did some grade banding, and really a big part of that was what transportation was going to look like. And so I think you need to, with a contracted system, you need to really read and know what the contract says, and you need to work closely with that partner to make sure, again, efficiency is maximized in those positions, and make sure that we have everything covered in the most efficient and effective manner for buses.
Any follow-up? Reverend Harris?
How will you ensure equitable opportunities grounded in support, tools, resources, and time to learn despite race, zip code, or family background?
This is a challenge that we've had for many, many years, and this is what Title I was intended for. It's intended to serve our most at-risk students. So we really need to look at how we're using our federal funds above and beyond what all other students are getting. So how are we supporting those schools? How are we supporting those teachers? How are we bringing our parents to the table so they can support their students? But we've got to look at what additional supports and scaffolds we can use for those underperforming students.
Thank you.
So evidently you used a strategy to pull the school levels F and B up. And did you use the Title I funds
We did, so we actually,
in
that,
addition to what did you use besides Title I, because you can't just go alone?
right. So we actually had TAP in that school, which is through NIT.
Okay.
But we did use Title I, of course, to look at some very targeted and effective programs to really hone in the skills of for RTI for those students. But I will tell you, it was an intense focus on instruction in every classroom, every day. And it was teaching the principal, walking through with the principal saying, okay, what do we see in this classroom? What's the next step? And that's kind of the TAP processes. What do you see? What can we do next to make sure that these students grow? And of course, with the state giving us all growth targets for every student now, we use those. In that particular school, there's a whole wall, and it's how many kids are 10 points away, and it was literally every week look at what kids can we move to make a difference.
Catalyst? Board members, bear with me. We've constructed things in Natchez Parish to prevent student burnout. So what did you do to prevent that from happening?
Again, I think this is where your interest and opportunities come in. I think that you have to incentivize kids at every age. I can tell you at one of our middle schools currently, they did some research on Finland and found that they were doing brain breaks on a block schedule. So you have a 90-minute block and the kids were just burnt out in the middle of it. So they have a bell rings, they have 5 minutes, they get up, they get moving, they get their brain flowing, they go back. Seen tremendous results with that this year. But it's really, I mean, you have to incentivize the kids and you have to make learning fun because they don't want to come to school every day for a teacher just to hammer on this is what you need to learn. But the more engaging our teachers can make the lessons, the more impact that we're going to see. And that's in Rapides Parish, we implemented something called Scale Up, but what it was is really a focus on student engagement, and we built lessons that were around a real world problem, but really hit those standards. And when kids can talk and collaborate and use technology, you have to have them doing that or you're going to lose them. But again, you have to train your teachers on how to be able to do that.
Right.
You're welcome.
Did it involve, dealt situations where if you had to intervene and make changes with the curriculum in order for the children to be successful? Sometimes that can be a problem.
Yes, ma'am. So this year, we've been using Eureka Math for 7 years, and we tracked our trend data, and we realized that we weren't seeing the gains that we needed to see after 7 years. So we got a committee of teachers, one from every school. We asked the principal to send a highly effective one, and we looked at every tier 1 option. The Louisiana Department of Education has done a great job with actually tiering good curriculum. But you have options now. Before you only had Eureka, it was the only one. So our teachers went and they tried each one of the programs. They went and visited districts that had gone in a different direction with the different programs. And they went back to their classrooms, they taught using different programs, and they came back together and they said, you know what, it's time for a change. So we're changing for next year into a different direction. And sometimes you just have to do that because it's not meeting the needs of the student.
Yes, you do. I totally agree with it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Beverly?
Yes. Please explain your description of an instructional leader and provide specific examples of how you've demonstrated this quality with faculty and staff.
So as an instructional leader, you have to be the one that stays on the cutting edge of what's going on. You have to know what's changing at the State Department, what your standards are, what options you have for curriculum. You have to know what an effective lesson looks like. And you have to, I think the most important thing as an instructional leader is you have to be able to coach teachers or principals or whoever it is to really build that in their classrooms. So it's not just knowing the curriculum, it's, okay, how do you do this particular thing to get to mastery of the standards? So you have to be always learning. You have to sit in professional developments with your teachers so that you're hearing the information that they're hearing so that you can support that work in the classroom every day. And as an instructional leader, again, you are a coach, but you are there to support your teachers, and you can't support your teachers if you don't know what it is that the district or whoever it may be is telling them to do. So it is hugely important for all instructional leaders, administrators, whoever it may be, to all be on the same page with that and be able to support that work in every school.
Any follow-up board members? Ms. Willis?
Hi, Ms. Lawrence. My question is, how do you plan to introduce yourself to our community and businesses and our staff?
So I think with, first and foremost, new superintendent, it's kind of intimidating for everybody to get a new superintendent. And I would start by going to each school, having a faculty meeting at every school, and just laying out, here's who I am. I'm taking the first 90 days to really listen to you. What do you see? What are your needs? Tell us what you do great in Natchitoches Parish. Tell us one thing that we can improve upon. Tell us what your ideal school system would look like, and really just listen to people. I think you have to be at the Chamber of Commerce. You have to listen to what they're hearing. I think you need to go to Northwestern. That's a huge one that we need to really make sure that we have a strong partnership with. You need to talk to them about, what do you want out of your school system? What are we doing to provide? We need to go to our employers and talk about our students who are graduating. Are we fulfilling the need that you have for employees? If not, what can we do differently? But that first immediate, and of course central office as well, because they'll be in a panic too. We have to meet with them. But from custodians to bus drivers to everybody, you just have to get out there and say, here's who I am. I'm here to listen. I'm here to really move this district forward. But we have to have feedback from all parties to be able to do that effectively.
Okay, any follow-up on that? Ms. Pedro?
How do you plan to monitor leading critical indicators to support all children performing at grade level or above? And how would you communicate the information to the staff?
So I think it's important to analyze data throughout the year. LEAP should not be just a one-time, oops, we didn't know our kids weren't going to perform well. So we've done things in Rapids Parish. We have a district data dashboard that goes out every quarter. And we look at stuff from teacher attendance to student attendance. We look at the number of suspensions and out-of-school expulsions. We look at it all. But we also look at how are they performing in ELA. We use LEAP 360, and we run those numbers by school, and we kind of rank them. And we send the whole thing out. Everybody's school is on there because we all want to know how we're performing. But then it's conversations with the instructional leaders of those schools. I think they need to come and say, okay, here's your data. Now tell me, what is your plan for your next step? And of course, your school-wide plans that your schools have to write, I feel like we need to use those to really make a difference, not just for compliance, but what are you doing that's going to make the biggest impact on teaching and learning in the next 9 weeks? And then we'll have checks throughout of how's it going, talk to me about what you're doing. And again, as a superintendent being in schools, you'll be able to tell a lot just by walking in schools as far as what's going on with curriculum and instruction. But you have to have key measures in place. You have to have some common data and common assessments at the district level. And I feel like you probably have some pretty smart teachers that could come together over the summer and write some. And then we could use those across the district. Because at the end of the day, every student's held to the same standards. So we need to be assessing them throughout the year to those standards. And it doesn't need to be different because this school's an A school. You know, this assessment for this standard looks different than this kid who's at an F school. Because at the end of the day, they all need to be mastering the same standard with appropriate scaffolds for students who just need additional support. You're welcome.
Any follow-up? Ms. Lawrence, we have concluded the question, and we would like your closing remarks.
Okay. Oh, my powerful little answer. So I think in closing, after talking about all of this, you have a solid school system in place, and I see what can be done in Natchitoches Parish. I think coming from a larger district like Rapides, I can bring some different ideas to Natchitoches, and it's exciting to think that we can really have an impact on every student. And we know that research says when a school system does well, the whole community does well. And I think you have a community that is supporting you. I think you have a Chamber of Commerce who's very involved. I think you have, Northwestern, who is at your back door that we need to utilize, and really bringing them all together, we can just make a tremendous impact for Natchez Parish. I look forward to the opportunity. I hope I gave you some good answers. It's stuff to think about.
Ms. Lawrence, thank you very much for your time, and we did appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.